Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, let's talk about our times and some answers to the problems of our times. That's what we talk about in this podcast, and I'm looking forward to talking about it now. You know, we are living in some very strange times. And I got to tell you that while I'm happy to talk at any point about the specific problems and the specific crises and the specific issues in D.C., I'm increasingly concerned about what this is doing to our souls, or perhaps more importantly, to the soul of our nation. You know, you can hardly turn on the TV today. You can hardly listen to a podcast or read the news on your iPhone or whatever phone you use and not come across disturbing information. It's not just that people are contentious in D.C. and people are arguing. We're okay with that. It's that it's disturbing. It's disturbing to find that our leaders behave a certain way, or it's disturbing to find that, there's such troublesome character issues and such lack of wisdom, and then on top of that, it's just the momentousness of the issues that we're dealing with, massive issues, global issues, huge issues that we're dealing with, and I'm concerned that there is coming in the soul of the American people, and certainly the people I care about most, which are those of you who are listening to this podcast. I'm concerned that there's a kind of a loss of vision that can happen, a sort of a dimming in our love of country and our belief in the possibilities of freedom and democracy and a people living as a noble people on the earth. That our souls are taking hits constantly, that we are constantly being bombarded. I mean, just in the average day, from what I hear in conversations, what I'll listen to, when I'm getting dressed in the morning, what I'll catch on television. I mean, it's just a bombardment. And it can be disillusioning. It can be disparaging. It can start to damage what I believe about, myself, my people, my country. And I think at the end of this very tumultuous year, probably all of us are feeling that. And I want to offer some solutions. You know, it's the holidays as I record this, and a lot of you will have a little bit more time off, a little bit more time to yourself, perhaps, time to just spend a little time reading or a little time listening or watching something on YouTube. And I want to recommend a few antidotes to this disillusioning bombardment that we are all receiving from the news and the events of our country and our world. First of all, and I'm not only recommending books today, but I first of all want to recommend a book. It's by a woman I admire very much. Her name is Peggy Noonan, and it's called Patriotic Grace. This is a book that she wrote some years ago. Patriotic Grace, What It Is and Why We Need It Now, by Peggy Noonan, the Wall Street Journal columnist. I like Peggy very much. I like her books. I like her commentary. But this book is about a grace that we seem to have lost in the United States. It's the ability to be patriots, be passionate, but not treat each other as enemies, to learn how to contend without destruction, to learn to throw aside the criminalization of politics and the vilifying of the other side, and see the cause of the nation improve. We are an increasingly diverse people, diverse in every way, and we're going to need patriotic grace. I think if you read this book, and it's inexpensive on Amazon as a Kindle book, and of course it's still available in paper, but I strongly recommend this. I think if you read it, you'll have some of your sense of vision and purpose restored. You'll believe a little bit more in your country, and maybe you'll read some things about how we ought to conduct ourselves. I wish I could give this to everybody in Congress. Patriotic Grace, What It Is and Why We Need It Now, by the eminent journalist and commentator Peggy Noonan. Now, the next book that I'm going to recommend, and these are the only two books I'm going to recommend, It's going to be a surprise to some of you. There's no question, those of you who listen to this podcast on a regular basis, you know that I am definitely right of center. I'm not hard or extreme right, but politically I find myself right of center. Recently did a podcast on being in the radical middle, and that's pretty much where I find myself, though I'm definitely on the right side of the middle. And so some of you will be surprised to find me recommending a book by the man I'm about to mention, because he's perceived as being a spokesman for or the far left. It's not true, but that's how he perceived. And the man I'm talking about is Dan Rather. Now, I've had some time with Dan Rather. I was interviewed by him some years ago about military affairs and religion. We had dinner afterwards. I have to tell you, I was very impressed with Dan Rather. I would talk about writing a book about the Pope, and he would start talking about sitting with recent popes. He definitely one-upped me at every turn. But he was well-spoken, he was intelligent, he was wise. One of the things that impressed me was that every time Bev got up and left the table, the dinner table, Dan rose because a woman was leaving the table. He rose again when she returned. He got her chair. She was sitting on his side of the table, and I couldn't get around fast enough. I'm making an excuse for myself. He was mannered, he was Southern, he was wise, he was gracious, and we had a lovely, lovely evening together. But that aside, even if I didn't like him personally, I've read a book of his called What Unites Us? Reflections on Patriotism. It's written with Elliot Kirschner, and I have to tell you that I think he makes some very, very important points in this book. I like the fact that he's from a different political stream from me. I mean, I don't know where he is exactly. He's not flaming left-wing. He's probably left of center, like I'm right of center. But I like the way Dan writes. I like the fact he loves his country. I like his toughness, his manliness. I know he's been vilified for a lot of things, and the right tends to hate him. But I'm not just going soft on all people on the left. That's not my point. I'm happy to have a debate with Dan and disagree with him anytime. But the fact of the matter is that he's talking about the nation. He's talking about how to discuss ideas in the nation. He's talking about what should unite us as Americans, as diverse as we are. I think it's a valuable book. In fact, I think Peggy Noonan's Patriotic Grace and Dan Rather's What Unites Us are two books that are absolute essentials for healing the American soul, so to speak. I'm talking about healing it in terms of the trauma that we've endured in the last year or two. Very, very important books. And I want to recommend one other thing in addition to Peggy Noonan's book and Dan Rather's book. And this will cost you absolutely nothing. Sometime over the holidays, go on to YouTube and find a longer lecture by David McCullough. Now, by that, that's the only description I'm going to give you. There are so many of them. I'm saying don't just look at a quick commercial or a quick little interview. You will probably find a 60 Minutes interview, a two-parter. You will definitely find talks that he has given at book festivals and award ceremonies and achievement ceremonies around the country. Listen to David McCullough, the eminent author, talk about America. He will talk about character. He will talk about the sacrifices of our founding fathers. He will talk about the difficulties that our nation has endured. He will talk about the values and the ideas that changed the world. He will talk about the nobility of some of our leaders. He will talk about the greatness of the country. We're living at a time when people are in a bit of a backlash. They're mad at anybody who owns slaves. I get that. You know where I am on African American issues today and where I am on slavery. They're angry about anybody who was flawed. They're angry about, there's kind of a backlash against what has come before. Not just on the issue of slavery, which I understand to a large extent, but on other matters as well. So there's a bit of a revisionist history theme going on. There's a bit of anger. There's a bit of wanting to break from the past when the past has a lot of nobility in it. And so I urge you, find some time, sit with your iPad or a computer in your lap when you have a moment and can put in your earbuds or your headphones and listen to a talk or two by David McCullough. You will love your country again. You will understand wisdom. You will hear from an elder statesman, a wise older voice. You will hear from an elder who's recounting the story of our tribe as Americans. I don't just want you to get fanned into a fiery kind of mindless patriotism. I want you to know the ideas. I want you to know the distinctives. I want you to know what David McCullough has unearthed and what he expresses so well as a wise older man with gray hair. I think you'll find it noble. I think you'll find it beautiful. And I think you'll step into the new year with a greater sense of the possibilities of your country. I have deep concerns about America. There are aspects of my country right now that are very, very offensive to me. And I'm not talking about a certain political party. I'm talking about how people are treated. People of faith are treated in some cases. I'm talking about the bashing that we give certain segments of our society. I'm talking about the way we conduct ourselves internationally. And yes, I'm talking about the rudeness and rawness of our politics in D.C. right now. But I love this country. I pray for this country. I believe good things are still possible for this country. And so I want to urge you, get Dan Rather's book, What Unites Us. Get Peggy Noonan's book, Patriotic Grace, and take some time over the holidays to listen to a lecture or two by David McCullough. I think you'll be changed by it, and I think you'll see a bit of a restoration from the pit into which many of us are descending in our souls.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.